Yeah, you have everybody but Alan and
Okay,
John.
and maybe they will come
Yeah.
on. So anyway, we will work our way through this agenda. You were sent the minutes electronically. And I would entertain a motion to either accept the minutes or to amend them.
Move for acceptance.
I will move for acceptance.
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor is aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Same sign. All right, that has been approved. Thank you so much. Liz, we're on to you.
All right, good morning, and thanks. I know everybody is in full swing and prep for what's coming tomorrow, so we appreciate you taking time out to come be here and be part of the meeting. And we were also talking about the fires in California, and we have so many colleagues out there, and it's just devastating to watch what's happening out there. So our thoughts are with those folks. Just a few updates for you this morning. We're prepped and locked and loaded for the upcoming session. We're just awaiting the governor's report and the budget items. We already have a sight line into that because we get the super speeder monthly reports, so we know what to expect on that budget, and it changes a little bit each year as it grows, but our budget line items remain pretty consistent. So so once we get that, we will plug in our numbers and then we'll be ready for the appropriations hearings. And then just a couple follow-ups from last meeting. You may or may not recall that we embarked after our 2023 ACS consultative visit. We embarked on this rural trauma resource needs assessments for the rural hospitals, and we partnered with the Mercer Rural Health Innovation Center, as well as the State Office of Rural Health. It was a great partnership. With the help of Nita Ham, we reached all 66 rural hospitals, and we got a lot of great feedback from that survey. So we did follow-up sessions with all of the participants to bring back what they told us, just to say, hey, we wanted to know what your concerns were, what you needed, how we could meet your needs, and potentially how we could bring you into the trauma system. This is what you told us. Did we get it right? And here's what we think are some potential solutions, and what do you think about that? So we got some great feedback, mostly, and Courtney, we went over that in the level 3, level 4. At some point, it might be helpful. I know we have a pretty full agenda today, which is why I didn't add it, but it may be helpful to share some of those findings, and I can at least send the PowerPoint to you guys. But a couple surprising findings from that was that all of the centers have access to packed red blood cells. So while folks can't get a balanced 1-to-1 resuscitation, we at least have everybody, even in the very rural areas, having access to packed cells. And that's really encouraging. Now, as you go down, again, less have access to fresh frozen plasma, and then even fewer, because of the costs associated with platelets, have platelets. But we're kind of in the ballpark, so to speak. So lots of room for optimization. In terms of education, they really preferred that sort of in-person, small one-on-one at their facility. So we're working on a lot of things, and we've had initiatives in the past through March Pause, where we were putting together some ways that we could meet their needs. So a lot of work ongoing, and mostly through the level 3, level 4 committee of the commission. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. The other thing was, last time we had talked about the upcoming World Trauma Congress and American Association of Surgery for Trauma. We had several presentations, as well as a couple of AAST abstracts. And one of those that was presented got accepted for publication in the Journal of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery, which is a huge feather in our cap as a trauma system, because it's a flat out 80% rejection rate of JTACs to try to get something in that journal. So it's really huge. Not only did it get accepted, but it also got, they asked us to write CME for it. So it's the CME article for the March edition. I call it the gift that keeps on giving, because they keep asking us for more stuff for it. It's got a tight turnaround, but it's huge. And we publish it under open access because we want everybody to be able to see it, regardless of your ability to pay for that subscription to the journal. And that was on the impact of ACS verification on statewide outcomes. So that really directly correlates that achieving ACS verification with improved patient outcomes. So very excited about that. Just a couple of grant contracts update. The equipment grant closes on the 31st. Gabby just told me that we've received 50 applications so far. We're processing those. You all have a couple special requests that you'll consider later on in the agenda. And then I want to just recognize Courtney and Terry for their hard work in finalizing and getting the GEMS contract across the finish line right before the holidays on the 20th. So
And Pete,
thank you. And Pete, yes, thank you, Pete. And then the next big meeting of the commission, we've had a little adjustment in our big in-person meeting. So we just met in November down in Cordeal, and then we're meeting again in person, which will be the combined commission GQuit meeting. We're gonna have our tech chairs and coordinators, the trauma administrators, the trauma medical directors, as well as a meeting of the COT, the Georgia COT, will happen at Callaway Gardens, and that takes place, I believe, February 19th to 21st. All the information's on our website for anyone interested in that. And then speaking of RTACs, I'm gonna turn it over to Crystal. She just filled a vacancy in Region 9. I think Crystal feels like this is whack-a-mole with the RTAC positions. And we're putting out a call for Region 8, RTAC coordinator replacement. And, Crystal, I know you want to give a med ed, report out. We've got some really good news.
I do, so. So I pulled 9 of the counties we have participating in the program right now. I think this is kind of the standard data view that we expected. The counties and what are the scores, the averages that they're getting on each of the exams, right? So we can see definitely just looking at this, that there's some opportunities for improvement. Overall, I think we've got about 400 students in the program right now. The committee approved a total of 1,000, and we know, I think about 200 coming on in programs in January. So we expect a big bump in that number. But what I'm excited to show you is not just this. We've got people in the program. We're getting really good information. Gabby, you can scroll down to the next page. So each EMS program, we're able to collect 1,200 data points. For each advanced EMT program, we're getting 1,700 data points. And so this is the information I think that's really exciting. Jeremy Ricks with MedEd Prep is a genius with data, and he has been such an amazing resource, not only for me, but for all of the initial education programs funded through the grant. But if you look, we just pulled out the trauma exam. So we divide all of the questions by what's the subcategory of it. So is this abdominal trauma, cardiac, ortho, soft tissue? What are we dealing with? And then the number of students who got the question correct versus the total number attempted. And this is really interesting stuff. So I think obviously the first year of a program like this is data collection. The second year is going to be, how can we implement change based on the things that we're learning? And we're able to see already opportunities to improve education if we've got a program that consistently has their students underperforming in chest trauma. Right? That's something that as an instructor, I would really like to know that, hey, maybe I should spend a little bit more lab time, or I should beef up my lecture time on that topic specifically. Maybe I need to throw out that PowerPoint and we need to try something different because we're not really connecting with our students on that one. So this is, can you go down one more? And then for the second graph that's at the bottom of the page, the top one was just kind of a big overview of all of the different programs. And you can see we've got 30,000 data points collected so far with an average score of 69.6 across all of our programs. If you guys remember from about a year ago, when we decided to move forward with this, our pass rate on the National Registry for grant funded programs was 64%. So we're not terribly off from what we kind of expected to see without any intervention, right? So while I don't like to see that number, I'd rather that number be much higher. It is consistent, meaning that the testing is going to be a good observation across the programs. So this next one is, I just removed the count, but each one of the different colors represent different counties. So Jeremy and I are going to work to create some heat maps that we can see across the state with trauma care, where are we knocking it out of the park and what are areas that we can specifically target? So that's something that I'd like to work with OEMS on is they're gonna be continuing to do the educator symposiums as they rotate around the state. Information that I would really partner with them on and say, hey, in this region, here's what we're able to pull out of the data related to how your students are performing. So again, that data doesn't matter if we can't create interventions around it. And what I'm seeing is a lot of opportunity for intervention, significantly more than I expected. So I've got the spreadsheet with all of the counties. Right now, we've got 9,000 different questions that are listed on that with the various points. If anybody is interested in this stuff, I'd be more than happy to show it to you. But this is just kind of a snapshot of where we stand now, and I think the opportunities for improvement across the grant funding programs. And happy to take any questions.
So how many programs are you looking at right at the moment?
So I pulled out of this, we just pulled 9.
Oh, so
And-
you've got more, but this is what you pulled.
We've got more that aren't complete, so I pulled the most complete programs. I think we have 4 or 5 that they're all the way to completion in their program. We've got several others that are started and they've gotten through 1 or 2 or 3 tests. And again, in January, we've got significant amount of programs coming on board. So I expected that this next report out will be tons and tons and tons.
So I'm just looking right there, right at the moment on pneumothorax, 26.67%.
Right. It's concerning, isn't it?
Very much so.
Right.
Yeah, very much so.
Right, it's a lot more than us just being able to look at the averages of the students. We're really gonna be able to drill down into the specifics of not only is it chest trauma, but what specifically about chest trauma are they not understanding? Maybe pneumothorax is easy, but maybe hemopneumonia eludes our ability to diagnose, right? So, and opportunities to make that a more comprehensive program.
Do you see any opportunity to standardize their lesson plans? So if somebody's got on hemothorax, they got a 97%. Do you see any ability to go to that and say, okay, we want to see your lesson plan, we want to see what age you use or what slides you use or whatever, and share that?
I think so, and we haven't had a ton of resistance to participation, but change is difficult for anybody, right? So I think the way that I would like to position that is here's resources, we identified
Yeah.
a concern, and here's additional PowerPoint or open source materials or whatever it is that they need. And hopefully they'll be receptive when we can say, across your program, only 30% of your students can answer this question.
So I don't want this to come off punitive. I think
Exactly.
This should be an opportunity improvement. We're helping you. We want to get you there. But at the same time, at some point is, if they say, no, I don't want your help, then cool, we don't want to give you any more money.
Right.
That was one of the big things. We need to have success in these programs and that's disturbing, but at least now we know.
Now we know. And,
So-
and again, I think that when we can look at data across 1 year for all of the programs, I think we can really make some decisions about what we can do to impact them with additional resources and lesson planning and support with schedules and options and recommendations. But I agree with keeping everything non-punitive. That's not the goal of the program, is to be punitive. It's to make our pass rates for grant funded programs exceed the national average, because we're trying to give people a leg up that actually want it to look like a leg up.
The only thing I would ask is if, and I don't know when you finish this stuff, if we could send that out with the packet before, so we could look at this. So we might be able to ask more informed
Of course,
questions.
I'd be happy to do that. Jeremy and I met yesterday, so I wasn't able to pull anything together before that, but I will do that in the future. Send that with the packet.
Someone just asked that too online, so when we post the materials for the meeting, we'll get that out. Thanks, Crystal.
Of course.
Anybody got a question?
Yeah, if you scroll down, you had the, questions. Oh, no. Further down, or maybe it's back up. Anyway, there was, right there on the bottom. So are all those questions, you got 8 attempts, 5 attempts? Is that the result from an exam? The
It
exam?
is.
So they were 0 on every one of those.
So
Wow.
each one of those colors, the blue is a specific program. I just removed the county name.
Right.
Again, the whole non-punitive thing, but yes, of their program, they had 0% correct. Now those are small sample size, right? There's only 8 attempted questions in that. So as we collect more information, the sample size is gonna look a lot better,
So
but
when it says total attempted, that's the number of questions.
how many students saw that subcategory of questions and how many got it correct?
Okay.
So it's 8 students. And
And
none of
8
them got
students
it.
that was in that class that nobody got it right, so you can't. You might want to think it might not be the student.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It may be the way that it's being
Yeah.
taught. And maybe it's that we need to rethink how it's.
And I think that the heat map maps are gonna kind of help us with that, is if we can identify areas where maybe the instructor needs support on teaching resuscitation in pediatrics, right? Then, you know, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if we can identify areas like that, and then we can work with OEMS to help offer resources to those instructors, then we end up with better programs.
Well, and I would think not even for first-time classes, but it seems like this might be something to offer for continuing ed, because how many people that are out there that did pass their exams but missed all this, and they're out working in the
Still taking care of
field
those
as we
patients.
speak.
That's a good
Right.
point.
So I wanna make sure, because Courtney and you make a good point. If there had been 16 people, just look at the drowning question, okay? If there had been 16 students in the class and 8 of them had gotten it correct, it would have been 8 and 8. Is that what it would have
It would
been?
have been 8 and 16.
8 and 16, okay,
And
okay,
it would,
okay,
performance would have been.
That makes sense.
50%.
okay. All right, that's a good point.
So y'all will send this on out to the group.
Wow.
All right, and then lastly, if you can please provide an update on the exciting news that we may be able to push regional data out from GQuip. This is very exciting.
Yeah, so I'll give an overview, and then I can give all the details. So the RTAC coordinators have been asking us forever, for data report out, Scott specifically.
You guys do a great job with your own data, but not everybody is that sophisticated.
Right.
So, yeah.
But to have a consistent report out every quarter at their meetings on a snapshot of the region and what it looks like. So we work with the coordinators to come up with a minimum data set. What do they need? What's actionable data that they can create injury prevention or performance improvement projects around? And then we can trend those to see hopefully that our interventions are making things better. So we've got 2 categories. We've got just some bulk data overview and then key performance indicators. So in bulk data, we're gonna do the number of trauma registry patients per quarter out of each region, and then by county of origin, right, or county of injury. The mechanisms of injury, age ranges, and gross mortality. And then for key performance indicators, Gina, I know we added some. We're gonna look at scene times for critical patients versus more stable trauma patients based on an injury. Look at transfers for patients who are critical, how many of them ultimately go to a higher level of care? And then for those that are transferred, what's the scene time to arrival at destination number 2? Those are things that we thought we could bring actual programs around. What else do we have?
Yeah, I mean, well, we were fortunate, you know, we got a GQuip, especially the elementary project around what Michigan has done in TQuip. And I stumbled upon that Michigan actually provides regional data back to their regional. So they've been fantastic. And I said, hey, can you share some of the regional data you provided? And they sent me their regional report. So it's great. Now, Michigan is interesting that they have a lot of hospitals within each region. So they provide their data based on the hospital. Well, since we have few hospitals per region, sometimes only one hospital per region, that makes it a little bit more difficult because it's easy to identify exactly, you know, where that patient went. So in thinking of how we can slice it, we can provide regional data by county of injury, because we have that in the registry. So that way it's not identified where that patient went. So that's how we're slicing it. So we're taking the RTAC regions by county of injury. And most of the time, I was telling Liz, we're only missing it, like out of 40,000 patients, we only missed, county of injury was missing, for about 10,000 patients. So we've got some pretty robust data. there to provide. So we're gonna have mechanisms of injury for each of those regions, gross mortality, ISS scores for that, and working on, median scene times and some of the other data. So it may take a little bit more time to get some of the more detailed data, but the high level data, it's pretty much ran for all the regions, so we'll be able to provide some scorecards. And we've got some, public health students that are working with us, so our goal is to help them have them build us some templates, so we'll be able to run the data every quarter and provide that back to our practice. So I think this is, some great use of the data that we already have.
Then each region can look at their data and decide what can they impact, what's important for them, what trends are they seeing, specifically in like mechanisms and things like that, so that they can have specific programs around that, so.
And it's already interesting to see the different, the age group range. I was showing Crystal what I've already, noticed what the age group priorities in region 3 are much different than what we see in region 2. So that will definitely drive your injury prevention efforts. You may need to be in retirement homes for one region, and somewhere different for, another region. So
Just to clarify, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, is that all hospitals or just trauma centers?
And it's trauma centers, patients that go into the range.
yeah,
So I heard that you're making sure the data doesn't identify hospitals. How is it gonna be on the ambulance service side? Will the data identify ambulance services?
no, because it's just, it's counting the injury. So, the patient could have been a POD. So they didn't have to go to the facility by an ambulance. So, that's one of the other things that we're gonna be, is going to arrival. They went by police, they went by POD, they went by EMS, they went by helicopter. So it doesn't identify, who took them there, just, how they got there. So
More of a regional snapshot of just kind of what's happening with the population that makes it into the trauma registry.
So I might not have heard it right, but I thought I heard you say that you're gonna look at time to definitive care. All right, somebody smoking something on one of the committees I'm on. Cause we've been working with that with another committee for
12
forever.
years.
Yeah, back to the Ernie Doss days. All right, and so are they smoking? Are you smoking?
We have it, and we have it built in. Now, the problem is it's a limited data set, because
What we
When
were
the
getting was
patient-
24%.
Yeah,
Yes,
you don't
yes.
have it.
Yeah.
yes, and that's the problem we're working with. So, and that continues to be the fact.
So if you have some, I guess y'all are measuring from time of injury until time at a trauma center?
Well,
And
it's,
if there's a mediary hospital in the middle, that's not counted?
It
no,
is
that
counted.
is counted.
Oh,
It
okay.
is
So,
counted if
and
they can
that's-
get the data.
Yeah, that's where we only have a limited, about 25% of the time, where we know the time of, we do scene time plus transport time from to hospital 1, the time of hospital 1, transport time, and then the time of arrival at hospital 2. So that's where that time to definitive care, that's what we're using, but we only can piece that together, about 25% of the time. for the Patients that go are transfers.
So what they have trouble doing here, and we, that other committee, we've been looking at this, and I know, Atrium and Macon and Memorial in Savannah are doing some pretty much handwork, I think.
Yeah,
Trying to collect,
Kelly's team, you guys.
trying to collect data, and
Yeah.
they, we may get some reports on that. I think we meet sometime today. I get confused. But the big issue is if, just like Emmanuel County, if somebody from Johnson County brings a trauma patient to our hospital, and then we later transfer that patient to Augusta, they're having a hard time getting that first match.
So I wonder, just a question, is it possible to look through the payers to get this information?
The
Because
payers?
Yes.
Yeah,
because
we did. We're doing that
You go
right
through
now. That's gonna be
CMS
part
and
on the, yeah.
Blue Cross, whoever, to tie all that together, and it may not be a hospital record, but it's all provided to the payers, so they're collecting all of that, that may be an avenue to take.
We've looked at it. It's not much better
And the bottom.
Because I know on
line
the
is-
ambulance
in terms
side,
of the
you know,
timely.
on the ambulance side, if, you know, we submitted a bill for ambulance service, but there was not a corresponding hospital bill, then they were questioning, wait a minute, how are you expected to get paid when patient was never seen? So there is that corresponding piece in there that maybe that can tie it all together.
And so, let me go back, circle around to the beginning. So at some point, y'all are gonna make these reports quarterly?
Quarterly. We're gonna prepare and give them to the RTAC coordinators before their quarterly meetings, so that they can present the information out.
And it'll be a standard data set with every region. Any questions?
And it sounds like it's ready to go, but
Jim's almost gotten for.
pretty much ready to go.
Yeah.
Good deal, thank you.
So do we, now with the Region 9 person, we now have someone in every region?
No, we have
Almost.
Region 8 now. We're having some.
We're currently taking applications for Region 8. Anita officially retired from everything, so we're happy for her, but that position is open now. But we have, Coy Tippins is taking a position in Region 9. He's excited, and we're yeah, so. And then the last update that I have is, as of right now, we have 1,226 responses to our educational needs assessment. So really send it to every medic in the state. Of course, our coordinators have been sending that out, but gonna have some really great information that comes out of that.
So that's March 20th. So I was gonna say this later, but I'll say it now. Look at the bottom of your agenda. Very bottom. It says date. March the 20th. 24. We probably need to correct that one.
I thought we already had it.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. But this says 11, 10 to 12. You need to scratch that 12 out and put 10 o'clock until we get done. So if you need to bring a sleeping bag, that would be okay. If we need to, we will bring food in. But I hope that we will get our educational plan finished that day. Fair? Maybe not so much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Liz?
Sir.
Tim?
I'll go to Costco and get your Snickers. Well, you're gonna need more than that.
I got two of the big ones here. Yeah. Tim, are you online?
I'm online. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Well, first of all, we'll just take a quick look through the quarterly report. We've got a few pages here just that listing the support deliverables that were done, a lot of activating SIMs, changing SIMs, changing carriers a little bit on some cases, and we're getting a lot of new and replacement equipment in. It seems like this last 6 months, we've got a lot of new ambulances in the state, so that's good news. And you see all of those kinds of things. Some of the things we do is finding owners when we see ghost trucks floating around on the map with no identification. It takes a little running down to find out who they actually belong to, but usually we can do that. And we've been looking at keeping our actual number of chargeable lines down as low as we can in terms of trucks that are in the shop and that sort of thing, and getting them on suspension temporarily and deactivated if necessary. And that's always a little bit of a challenge. It's when we trade out pieces of equipment and change SIMs on them, it's a little bit like changing leadership teams in the EMS agency. Hard to keep track of. You see our total usage for the actually it should be second quarter. I did mess up that Q1. And you can see where we stand with active in each region compared to prior quarter. And overall, it's across the board, it's 84%, which is the same as it's been running. About 1,094 active units that we're paying for out of a total of 1,308 that are on the AMM that are participating in the system across the state. Okay, and the counties that we are not in at the moment, we still see them here.
Hey, Tim.
Yes,
Oh, so region 7, I think it was 7, was showing 60%.
yes,
That's pretty low.
yes, it is. But it's a small number. Look, it's a total of 32. And we've got a problem there, which I was going to talk about a little bit more, which is that these small agencies with 2 trucks or 3 trucks, such in region 7, region 8, region 4, over in that part of the central part of the state on the west side, mostly into the south, they're really struggling trying to get support from radio shops. There's the normal time it takes them to get prioritized to decide to install a unit, but then the problem they've got is they can't get a radio shop or anybody to install it. And Peach County's been sitting on some units for several months now, and they've been fighting, trying to get that to happen. And the radio shops are not adequate for doing the job. Let's put it that way.
Would it be beneficial if we identified some people that are willing to install and
Well,
maybe we provide support to get these groups or individuals to go to these services and install it for them?
I like the way you think. Yeah, exactly. And for example, for those folks over there, we're in process of doing that right at the moment for Macon County, Marion County, Schley, some folks over there that need help with that. It turns out that Kevin Warsham at Community Ambulance he knows what he's doing with that equipment and how to install it and so on and so forth. He does it right well with his fleet down there and is willing to do that sort of thing. We have also Brian Pennell up in the north part of the state that's doing that. And we also have Lloyd Sherling over in Bullitt County who's capable of doing that. And what I'd like to do is we brought up the issue sometime in the past about reimbursing some of these agencies, the small agencies that have to pay for installation, that we would reimburse them up to like $250 for installation. And these guys would do those installations and stuff for us across the state. They help each other a lot, but if they're going to actually go out and do installs and stuff like that, they probably need to be compensated for that. And my proposal is that we budget $10,000 or so to go to that effort, and that would allow us to put some good hands-on expertise in there to help those folks that need it.
Would that be managed by you?
I can do that. Yes. Yeah.
Because what I wouldn't want is give anybody the capability of just making a service call every time they have an issue, and then we're spending a lot of money on.
The only thing this would be for is for installations. Anything else that they can do through IPS, and yes, I would manage that, make sure that's the case. But these guys understand that they're not going out and doing other kinds of maintenance. They're just doing installs.
So Courtney, is that something we can do now, or?
It would take
A motion?
Well, it would take, what I would prefer to do is make a motion that we look at it in the next budget, which starts in
Yeah,
July.
but we're having issues now. I know we had
Yeah.
some money from something. Is there any money left over to Katie that we could, I mean, 10,000 in the grand scheme of things is not a huge amount of money, but
Well, we can use it, we can use the money that we have in the equipment budget right now, from my perspective, for the rest of this year. But if you've got another source of funds, that'd be great too.
So he can handle it, so.
Is this reimbursing agencies or individuals?
This would be,
Individuals.
the installers would be the people who will ultimately get the money. And we can do it through the agency, reimburse the agency and let they pay the installer. Or we can have the installers bill us directly, whichever way you would prefer to do that.
Is this multiple installers or is this just handful
There-
of installers? They're gonna have to be vendors would be the
We're-
situation.
Well, we're talking about 3 or 4 private vendors right now that we would use to do this. And then there could be there may be a radio shop or 2 that can still provide the support. But it differs in each geographic area. That's the problem.
I would not want to send this money to the county government.
So, Tim, when you said us reimburse them, were you referring to you and your company? Is that what,
out of his budget.
out of your budget? So they would submit the invoice to you, and then you would reimburse it and then forward it back to us, and
No,
I think
he would forward the invoice.
I didn't know who us was. I didn't know if us was the trauma commission or us
Right.
was this company.
Us is the trauma.
Okay.
Trauma commission, yeah, I would just get
Trauma.
I would get the request for reimbursement and approve it and then pass it on to Katie and Gabby, and you guys could pay.
to reimburse the provider, the 911 sole provider, considering they're already in the system for the EMS equipment grant. We have all that information. That would be the easiest route instead of having to set up vendors for each of the installers.
But we could set it where
Yeah,
it be
but-
approved by Tim, right?
Have you ever worked for
Yeah.
the county government? Well, let me tell you how this would work. The guy would go do the work, would tell the EMS director, I've done the work. The EMS director would tell Tim that did the work, you'd send a check to the provider, the check would go in the general fund, and nobody would know where the hell it was. And that's,
So how we decide who you, when they would be eligible to be reimbursed?
if we do it, I'd let Tim make that decision, he knows who's good at this and not. I just know, I am the recipient of grants in Emmanuel County. And trying to track that money down sometimes, because DPH is wonderful about sending a check with some numbers on it. And you never know what those numbers mean, so, I would prefer sending the check to the technician who does the work. I think that would involve
Tim, could you work
maybe more
up
vendors.
a fee schedule for anybody that does that? Would that be plausible?
Yeah, I think we can simply set it, I think it's $250 a piece. That's what they were averaging from the shops and so on. And in talking with the guys, they're more than happy to work for $250 an installation.
So here's my devil's advocate. What's to say we do this and then say somebody like me that had my own internal installer turn around and say, hey, I need to get reimbursed for putting 24 units in my trucks.
You would
Yeah,
not.
I think we just have to say, that, we're doing these in 1s and 2s for the small agencies, and anything that other than that has to come to the EMS subcommittee to be approved before it can be done.
Okay, I'm good with that. I mean, I know there's a need out there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe some of these devices that are waiting to be installed, we're probably already paying airtime on them.
No, usually not. We don't get the SIMs for them until they actually get them installed, but I think we've got that under pretty much good control, but nonetheless, they're still sitting on a shelf, and some of them have been sitting on shelves for a long time. We're not getting any value out of those. So it's just a matter of trying to help the ones out there who really need the help, to get it done. I don't think we should be paying everybody, but I do think, for everybody, but every installation, but I do think there are some, like those small counties I mentioned, that where even Spalding is having a hard time getting this stuff done, getting installations done.
I wouldn't consider that a small service.
No.
And one of the other ones you mentioned, I wouldn't either. I'll be honest with you. If they can't come up with $250, that just amazes me.
Well, I'm not worried about whether they can come up.
It's not that, honestly, it's not the money. It's not, it's getting somebody who will do the work and do it for them. They can't get the radio shops to do the work, to even schedule the work. And there's other radio shops that just have lots of problems.
And it may be that Tim says, hey, I got somebody that'll do it, and they'll charge you this much. And then if
Right.
it's case scenario, then he can ask us if we can, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, why don't we do that, Tim? You make recommendations of people who you feel comfortable do the work, and then let's see where that goes. Because if we start doing it, we define a small ambulance service.
Like I said, that's.
To define somebody who needs it versus somebody who
Right.
thinks if you're gonna do it for that guy, why don't you do it for me?
Yeah, no, I agree. We don't want to get into that game, but it's like right now I've got some of them that are sitting there and they need to be installed, and that agency just can't get anybody to do it. So these guys have been doing some of this, for the good of the cause for no fee, but we get a lot. I think we would be able to make the whole thing more equitable if we could pay good people to go and do it. And to do that and I'm talking about, small agencies where we would be providing that, where we would pay for it. We're talking about 2 or 3 trucks, maybe.
If it gets up, always stop it.
Yeah, I think it's bigger than that, but we need to be able to provide some help, I think, to, for example, Spalding, but they need to pay for it themselves. That's Wellstar.
Right.
But, we can direct them to somebody who can actually do the work for them that they can't get done anywhere else. For whatever reason, I don't know, in a case like that.
I'm gonna bring up something that we've talked about in the past, and that's the availability of the equipment, because what we've had some conversations with at past meetings is that what we have been buying in the past is gonna go away. And that there was an issue with the new equipment, whether it would use the asset tags and the temperature probes and that sort of thing. Are we any closer to a resolution on that?
Yeah, we're getting a lot closer to a resolution on it, and I've still got more data and another meeting on tomorrow to get some more, but we're looking across everything that's out there. The truth is that document that I had sent out to each of you on the committee that describes this situation, it pretty well is where it's at. It looks like that we will be able to resolve the issues with Sierra Wireless, that they will respond to our needs, and it's not just us. There are folks in Florida and other places that are putting pressure on them as well. But they're paying attention to us, and they've already, we have basically there are 4 hurdles to get over to just move ahead with the XR series 5G equipment with Sierra Wireless. One of those was the AMM that they would show up on our existing AMM, and that's been resolved and is supposed to happen sometime in the next 60 to 90 days, that they will be available that way. Another issue is asset tracking. They know that's an issue because of wanting to do the IoT thermometers for the blood boxes and drug boxes and such. And they're working on that. And I think that's going to get approved as well. That's been moving forward. Another hurdle that we had to look at across all the possible contenders, not only Sierra Wireless, but Cradlepoint and Peplink and others, is the video uplink for actually doing telemedicine going forward, a live two-way video in the back of the truck. And that capability, it looks like, with Sierra Wireless, is going to be the best option with a good 5G carrier. And then the last one piece of it is the Bluetooth capability. And that's a bigger issue. And I think it's going to be able to be added, a Bluetooth module. We're in discussions about that right now. And I've asked the regional directors to survey all of the agencies with who's using Bluetooth life packs and EKGs, and who's using Wi-Fi, and how many are migrating to Wi-Fi to do that, because I know the investment in that 12-lead EKG is big. But I also know that a lot of the life packs that are running on Wi-Fi can be upgraded, that are running on Bluetooth can be upgraded to run on Wi-Fi. So it's a question of when do we no longer need Bluetooth capability, and how do we move forward? And obviously we'll have a lot of MG90s still in the system. And one of the things I'm proposing is to actually buy maybe 30 more units and put them in, warehouse them. We'll buy them in advance before they are no longer available, so that we have those for those cases where we absolutely use an MG90 because an XR or whatever the new technology is wouldn't meet that need. So, and that should hold us over until the technology comes around, and catches up with what our needs are. Our particular needs for these 4 things of Bluetooth and asset tracking and AMM and video are, not common of all of the public safety kind of uses of this equipment. So that it's finally getting their attention that ambulance services really are a niche that need to be specifically supported, and that seems to be going in that direction. So that's what I would say right now. We're still in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think I can come back and say, here's firmly what we've looked at. Here's why we wouldn't do this and why we would do this, and what I think would be the most reasonable way forward. But we're close to that, but I'm not 100% firm. Does that make sense, Courtney?
Yeah, I think so. What it sounds to me like, we may have some decisions to make at our next meeting. Is that?
Yes. Yes, I think we should. Yeah, I think we should be able to vote on it by the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, and as you get that information, if we can get that out.
So Nancy's gonna have to read it and make the badge up there. Everybody else, I think, take your time.
That's all right.
but I'm not sure who.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. Somebody was like talking over or whatever. I wasn't sure what was the last thing you said.
Did somebody online have a comment or question? Okay. Any questions of Tim?
I do have, one thing before we go. I do have, looking to budget for 2026, about $150,000 for equipment. And then the airtime and maintenance and stuff is gonna run about the same. So we're looking at a little over $900,000, which I'll be firming that up as we get ready to look forward to those next budgets. So that's one thing we're working on. The other thing is, Wilkinson County has taken back their EMS their 911 responsibility. And I haven't been able to find out who that is.
It's Atrium Health,
I'm sorry, it's what?
Atrium Health,
Atrium is taking it
Atrium.
over?
January 1st.
Okay, and who at Atrium, where do I reach that? Is it Atrium in Macon or is it Atrium?
Well, it's Atrium is Atrium, but it's Tony, in Macon. They're
Okay.
running.
Okay, I know, that's what I just needed to know. I think, I wasn't sure whether it was them or whether they had other facilities around, because I know they have Atrium up in Northwest Georgia too, so.
That's right.
It's Atrium Health Madison versus Atrium Health Rome, I think.
Yeah,
It's the same
Okay.
folks in Macon that are running Bibb County and Twiggs and Jones and. Baldwin.
okay, good, then I'm good. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of Tim? Jim's update, and I've asked him to give a overview of the classes that they coordinate, they teach, they deal with. The goal here is to get that information today, so everybody understands what they do. And then we'll get information from the RTAX next meeting and hopefully come up with what we want to do in March. Is that fair? So Kim,
You want me to come up there?
I think if you come up here, that people will be able to hear you better.
Good morning, everybody. So, Courtney first, I guess we probably want to go through the report or just look at the report that we sent you
Yeah, that would be great.
for the meeting. This actually just covers the information for, the classes that we've done for this fiscal year. And you see all the information there and you see the contact hours listed. That actually, I have a little bit of an updated figure from a couple of classes that we've gone on. I think that's listed as 20,551 contact hours. And with some additional courses that were done within the last week to two, we have actually 23,951 contact hours to date. So any questions about that graph and the number of classes that we have? This is pulled directly from our exhibit in the contract and the different training areas that we have.
So the left column is budgeting classes.
Yes.
So just, it ain't give a number of classes that's been completed yet, it's just basically.
Right. And they're not, as you see, not a lot of those. We have it broken down a little bit different. You see on the leadership class, you see the 1 of 4 modules. We've gone now to actually having that broken down between 2 fiscal years because of the way that class runs in a calendar year and actually crosses over 2 fiscal years. So that's the number that you see there.
It was the EMR EMT. Is that correct? That only 67 students completed out of 464?
I'm seeing.
Problem, or the first.
Biggest
first
one.
on
The contact hours can
Right.
allow,
State.
you have 67 students completed. for 64 enrolled?
I don't understand that number, but I will get you an answer to that because that,
Is that students that are currently in the class that haven't finished?
it may be because, you know, all these classes, none of those are
Yeah.
completed yet. So that may be the number of the ones that we have that the programs had already started. And that was a comment I was gonna make about that too, listening to Crystal's report too, because Travis McCoy actually is my coordinator for all the NAMT courses and the EMR EMT program courses. And I know that he's had conversations with Crystal and also with Jeremy, I believe, but I just, you know, asked that because we're the primary point of contact on these classes. So when anything goes on as far as questions, so if we could just be kept in the loop on that, and I know that Crystal was talking to Travis a bit and making sure that that happens, but we do get a lot of questions and we do have to do a lot of circling back and rounding up for classes either that have not started, because they'll give us a proposed date on the course to start, but then we have to keep following up with them to make sure that they're actually getting those started and can get completed by the deadline that we have for them set up in the contract.
The
Well, I
mental
think-
health class, was that the first one y'all done?
That was the first one, and that was actually in Lawrence County. We had good response from that.
There's only 10 finished, so.
Yet there were only 10, but we had some issues with, the scheduling of that. But there were 19 that were, I think, signed up for that one. Of course, it's a new class and we put out information through the regions, of course, through our listserv. But that is, new, and we've actually had some inquiries from people who have been talking about that class. So I think that is just one of those that in the new startup for it, it's gonna take a little bit to get word out.
So question for you and Crystal, because one of the things that I've been concerned about too is attrition rates. Are y'all keeping up with that? The number of students that start, and number of students that fall out?
I have a spreadsheet of that just based on initial roster and final roster. And then we've got the students in the testing program now that we can see how many of the exit exams they completed. It might give us an idea about where they.
And although I'm concerned about that, I do know that a lot of folks sign up and show up for 2 or 3 classes and realize, oh my God, I got to study and I'm not interested in this. And so if they drop out at that point, it is what it is. There may be some horsepower in a little bit better clearing of the students, but at the end of the day, a lot of people sign up, some of them don't show up. So-
And that has been the frustrating part about being able to get the horse to water but can't make them drink, because we can do all of this and following back up with them and making sure. But then again, when you plan a course and you plan what your instructor cadre is gonna be
Yeah.
for, 24 to 30 people in a class or whatever it is, and then you only have half that number show up. And that's frustrating.
Well, I'll wait till you're done, and I have something else on that, so we'll.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about that? I'll go through and talk a little bit and all the information that I'm going over is actually information that's in the scope of work, but maybe there's a little bit more detail that I can provide on some of this that we haven't talked about. Really the amount of work that goes into or what's actually required to set these courses up. All of you are familiar with the leadership program. We have submitted or have actually advertised through all of our listservs the upcoming leadership class, which will be the 14th year of that program. Within the first 2 days, I have received 15 applications on that. The deadline for that course application is January 31st. We do have all 4 modules. So we have defined dates and locations for those. And the actual first class of this leadership program will be the 2nd week of March at Georgia Southern. So we already have a signed contract with Georgia Southern. They have kept our cost for the work that they do with us at the same price for the last 12 years. So we've been able to continue that partnership with them. That leadership program again is 4 weeks over the course of the year, 1 week per quarter. That completes with, we actually have 2 courses that are at Statesboro, and then module 2 and module 3 actually are located at other locations across the state. Module 2 this year will be in Rome, and again, module 3 will be in Pine Mountain. We had 30 students in the course last year. We're probably going to stay somewhere between that 26 to 30 number. Again, the 30 came in because we received more applications last year than we'd ever received before. So we tried to get some additional people in the class. It is
That's a heavy lift with 30 people in that class for everything that's involved in it. So we'll stay somewhere in that range between 26 and 30.
I mean, applicants you go get lunch.
65
So I'll
We
get,
got 15 so far this year,
In
but
2 days.
deadlines that are just opened up.
Yeah, it just opened up. We actually sent it out last week with deadline of January 31st.
so how do y'all do the criteria? I think I know, but I get that question asked a bunch.
Yes, sir. So the criteria was actually established by a committee of the board and previous alumni from the leadership program. And there are different steps that they have to go through, which actually involves the sign off of not only their immediate supervisor, but if it's a county-based operation, their county administrator or county, whoever is actually over them. As you remember, Courtney, the reason for that is making sure that they understand what the time commitment is in the program, and that has worked well. They also provide an essay on basically their experience and why they feel that this course will benefit them. And then once, I think there are 3 different steps that they have to go through to actually even have their application considered. Once they completed all of those 3 steps that they have to go through, A, B, and C, then a committee is set up within, again, the board, alumni association, for people to actually review those applications and make the selection for the 26 to 30 applicants. Other questions about leadership? Right. We also have the trauma skills labs, which all of you are familiar with, the cadaver labs, trauma skills labs. Those courses, you saw the number that we have there allocated for this fiscal year. We have completed, I believe, 1 of those courses. So far, we have another one that's lined up for the end of January. And for any of the courses that we talk about that we already have confirmed dates and locations and details arranged for, you can actually go to our website, and we have a training calendar on our website. And once you go into the training list on the website, you'll actually go to each one of the classes that are listed here. There's a red link. Once you click on that, it takes you to the page that shows you where all of the courses are that are coming up, and then also provides a link for the registration page through SurveyMonkey. That generates another registration process through NAMT that we have to do for those NAMT courses that we do in-house. And also for like trauma skills labs and the others, we use that for everything, but you can find all that information on our training page. The trauma skills labs, one thing that we had incorporated last year, we've always talked to the regions when we were setting up those trauma skills labs, but what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to be making a decision on where those labs were located within the region. Now, one of the things that has been a little bit confusing about this is that if you didn't have anyone in a region apply, then the region council, there was some confusion because the region council was saying, well, we wanted a trauma skills lab here, or either you may have had 2 counties within that region that applied, but then the council would say, well, we want to have the class at XYZ County instead of the ones that applied. And we haven't been able to do that because obviously we don't want to penalize the people who have gone through the effort of actually doing the application. Case in point, we had, I believe, 2 counties in Greene County that had applied for a trauma skills lab. And then when it came back and where they were wanting to actually host the lab, it was not one of the counties that had applied. So you can see where that would actually be penalizing the counties that applied. So what we try to do is if we have 2 counties in a region apply, then we ask the region council with involvement of the RTACs about where, actually logistically, it would be better to hold that class because we don't want to be making that decision. And we do want the involvement of the regions and RTACs on where that needs to be located, but it does have to be with a service or a county that has already applied for the grant. Does that make sense?
So you've had somebody to request a skills lab that didn't have that service hadn't applied, because I know our council has like alternated the locations in Region 5, but that sounds.
Yeah, that's the case. If what we've had is we've had some people that say, once they now know that there are 2 counties maybe that have applied for the grant, they say, well, it would be better if we did it in this county. Well, that county didn't apply. And then the other part of that complicates this a little bit with several of the different training categories that we have is that, as you can imagine, there are certain logistics that we have to have for the trauma skills lab, for TECC, for farm extrication. Not every county can meet the criteria for what you have to put on those courses. So that also complicates it a little bit.
Would it be better if the application or the grant request was made by the RTAC? And let them work out the laundry within their region? You know, if you had 3 counties within the region saying, we want to host it, then that RTAC can work through that and they can confirm whether they have the facilities needed or not.
I'll give you my opinion on that, Huey, and personally, I don't think so, because we do have RTACs in the state that are higher functioning. And we don't want to penalize a service by, where they might not have an RTAC that is, staying on top of it or misses the deadline or whatever it is. We don't want to penalize the other services that have gone through doing what they need to do to be eligible for a class. So in my opinion, no, that would not be this way.
If you have an RTAC you feel like you can't work with, I'm more than happy to help fill in any gaps that are there.
I'm perfectly happy with the architects having input and support. But we've got several architects in that are very weak in the EMS world.
Or the council.
Yeah.
Maybe the council's the one that does the
Well, I think
application.
that's what we done in Region 5. We had 2 services, and we were one of them, so,
So you got it.
No, actually, it went the other way. So we alternated out. So we decided amongst ourselves how to do that. So we done it in Lawrence County the last time. So we were gonna do the next one. That way people at the north end of the region would have a close proximity skills lab, but we worked that out with the regional. We done that with the region council or within the council. So
Cause that, for right now, we know that we're basically gonna do a skills lab in each region.
I won't necessarily say that that's the case, because it's almost impossible in some of these areas that we've gone to say that, yes, we'll do one in we try to do that, but
Right.
what we end up doing sometimes is we are trying to find locations that may border on 2 regions.
And that's okay, but I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, we know we're budgeting 10.
Right.
So we're gonna have 10.
That are
And it seems to me that we could go back to our councils, our RTACs and say, okay, guys, do we want to have one of these in our region? We've got one allocated for us, and either we're going to support it and have it in our region, or we're going to lose it to another region if we don't do it. And that would put a little in them to come together and decide where in their region they can have it, to have the facilities to support it.
Let's do this, because if we keep going through here, we'll be here till 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll start trying to parse all the stuff out. I think the intent is for the RTACs and the regional councils to have some input into the coordination of where the classes.
Right.
Is that?
That's right. And we initiated that. So
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
yes, we do
So-
plan on doing that, because we don't want to be making those decisions on where those classes go. We know that the people that are in those regions know those locations better than we do, and where the population centers are, and the logistics that can be more easily accommodate those
And I know at
classes.
least in Region 6, I haven't heard a whole, I do hear some people say, well, I didn't get what I wanted. And I hear that at my house, and I hear that at my work, but some of it, we gotta keep in mind. If it's legitimate, then we need to address it, but some of that's just, I didn't get what I wanted, so. Good, continue on.
And I will tell you that we are averaging right now, we're averaging about 180 to 190 people through each one of the labs that we're doing right now. We started off somewhere, I would say we were doing around 100 to 125, and we're up now to, like I said, averaging about 180 to 190 at each one of those. So on the NAMT courses, I wanted to talk a little bit about this, because some of you may be affiliate faculty or coordinators for the NAMT courses. We do have 5 of those courses actually that fall under this: ANLS, PHTLS, EPC, TCC, and GEMS, the geriatric emergency course. And for these courses, what we do is we work with coordinators and instructors in the various regions that apply for these courses. We don't have an abundance of affiliate faculty or course coordinators in some of these areas. So what we're having to do in many of them is that me or other people are having to serve as affiliate faculty or coordinators in some of these areas. But what we're trying to do is use that as an opportunity to develop more of our instructor and coordinator cadre for these courses. The other thing is that, there's a site code that's assigned to each one of the locations that has an NAMT course. So it's not as simple as a service saying, I'd like to do a PHTLS course. Well, our first question is, do you already have an identified site code with NAMT? The majority of them in our rural areas do not. So no longer can we use what we used to do as a mobile site code. Used to, I could take my 5410 site code from the training center at Forsyth and we could conduct classes all over the state wherever we needed to. We can't do that now, because they weren't individualized, because there were some issues about whether those locations had the appropriate training equipment. And so NAMT couldn't be sure that everything was there unless they had a site checkoff and a process to go through to actually be assigned a training site code. But what they have allowed me to do is actually set up facilities under my site code. So if I go to Gilmer County, if Gilmer County doesn't have a site code, then what I can do is I can actually go to Gilmer County under my 5410 site code, but under the facility part of it, I can list all of Gilmer County's information. So what that does is it eliminates a lot of the red tape, a lot of the background that would have to go on. It still requires a lot of coordination, but it does not slow the process down of what you would have to go through in actually getting an assigned site code for each location. That took about a good 3 or 4 months, working with NAMT to get that done, because they're driving the point home that every location needed a site code. And we were able to show them that in the state of Maryland, that the entire state of Maryland, on some of the training that they were doing, they were operating all of their training off of one site code. So they did make allowances for us to go back and do that. But there are coordinators and instructors that we utilize all over the state. And what we're trying to do, once those courses are assigned, we actually look for, have listings of all the instructors and coordinators for areas. And we try to look for those instructors and coordinators in those areas. So we're not having to pay mileage and different things to send a coordinator and instructor from South Georgia to go to North Georgia to conduct a class. So that is,
They would already have the site codes
if they already have a site code,
from there.
right, if they have a site code, then it's a much easier process, because everything on the registration of that can be set up through that site code, and then you don't have to go through all of the other steps that you have to do on a checkoff that an affiliate faculty or course coordinator would have to do for those programs. We do have some of the NAMT courses, of course, that we do in-house, that are that have a core group of instructors that provide that. And then we have some that again go out to the regions and they say, we'll handle this. We just need funding for an NAMT course, and they get that. We typically have not been requiring them to tell us what course they're going to do at the time, as long as it falls under one of those trauma courses. And we did get approval for AMLS, because AMLS does have a pediatric trauma component. So that is one also that's allowed under that. Any questions about that one? The next one is the Intro to EMS Leadership Program. This is a program actually that was developed out of the full-fledged leadership program. And actually the content took several points from the leadership course. It was developed with a group of alumni that had been through the leadership program, and some other subject matter experts that were used to develop a scaled down program, because we were trying to reach younger leaders that are coming into services that we know that it will be where they can get into the full-fledged leadership program. And this was a way to bring out some of those topics like conflict resolution, some of the things that don't get into more of the upper management level, but actually start their leadership development. And those courses, actually there's a group that handles that are graduates of the leadership program that set up all of the coordination for that.
Is that one class or?
That's one.
There's one on there.
Yeah, there's one class, and usually we've been averaging about 40 people in that class.
How long is it a week?
That's a 2-day program. Yeah. The next category is farm
Kim,
Yes.
when will that open up?
We actually are right now looking at the location for that. We probably will be going back to Hard Labor Creek to do that course. And we actually had a meeting on Monday, Travis, Kathy and I, and we're trying to shoot for a spring course for that. So we hope to open that up sometime within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you.
The next category is farm medic and machinery extrication. This doesn't just concentrate, even though it was initially started as the farm medic program. We have now incorporated some industrial equipment in there. A lot of that program, the curriculum for that was actually based off of McNeil and Company and the original farm medic program. But what we did is we actually went in and developed a curriculum from that that is copyrighted to the association. Alan Owens has a cadre of instructors that has gone through different elements, bringing in some instructors that have involvement with people that he works with, Sunbelt Ag Expo and Moultrie, and a lot of those subject matter experts that we have in South Georgia. The other thing, this is a program, obviously, that we have to have certain put that course on. There's also a course that we get asked about a lot, not just in state, but we have been approached by 7 different states across the country that have asked us to take this training to them.
Which
So-
class is this?
Farm medic.
Oh, farm medic.
Yeah. So we always have more requests for this program than we can fund, but we've had a lot of success with that class as well.
We have done it out of state yet.
We have not done it out of state, and one of the concerns about that is, obviously, if we took that out of state, there would have to be some other steps that we would go through because the equipment that is used in that was purchased through, of course, grant funding, and with anything that is purchased with grant funding, we're very strict about that staying and being used by state providers and staying in state. So what we're trying to do is we're working with them on how they can develop a program in state, doing some of the things that we've done. But if that is something that we do later on, it will be done outside of this. Auto extrication, with patient care focus. Most of you in EMS, have all been through auto extrication, but you probably remember that as the hottest day in July that you're getting all dressed up and going out there and tearing a car apart. But what the missing component to that was actually what's going on with the patient while you're taking a car apart. So this actually has a strong patient care focus. This is one of the courses that we contract with an outside source to do this. Obviously with all of the electric vehicles and the changing trends that we have with some of this, we know that we're not the experts in this, but we have found the national and really international experts in doing this through Rescue Redefined, and we do contract with them to do this work. The TDCC courses, as you see, we have, I believe, 12 of those set up over this fiscal year. That is an established group of instructors that has been used in this program for about 6 years. We have other people across the state that do TDCC courses also. They can apply for those even through the other grant funding, but this is an established group that's been doing this, that is one of the NAMT programs and one of the things that I have to actually check off facilities for that class. We have one course that actually was supposed to take place this weekend up in Townsend County, but obviously with ice and snow, we knew that they would be needed for what's going on there, and so that course is being rescheduled. We're probably going to do that one in April, but those courses have all been scheduled through the end of this fiscal year.
You said other grant funding, what?
We've had some that wanted to use the NAMT course because it is an NAMT course. They could actually take that funding and do their own TDCC course if they wanted to. Now, a lot of times they don't have I won't say not necessarily the expertise, because the good thing about the cadre of instructors that we have that is teaching this course is that the majority of them are EMS, EMS fire. The majority of them have also had overseas training, have been deployed. So they're not instructors that are just getting out there because they've been through the course and have been checked off as an instructor. They've been in these environments. All of them have served on SWAT teams. So it really is not a situation where they're not just talking the talk. They've actually been there, which it brings an element, I think, to that training that makes a bigger impact because they can relate to it when somebody has actually been in that environment.
Do another grant, that's.
They can do that through again, if they have the equipment, and we do have some equipment that we're even willing to loan out. We have a backup set. So if we needed to do that for anyone that wanted to do that and do their own training, they could do that.
Who's the other grant funding source?
That there is no other grant. It actually would fall under our NAMT because TECC is an NAMT curriculum. So Region 10 actually is the one that has done it. Region 10, we worked with them on, but they already had instructors out there. And we worked with them on doing their course. And like I said, we do have a backup set of equipment that if anyone wanted to do it and borrow that equipment to do their own course, they could.
Okay, so it could fall up under the NA and D category or the DEC category. Right,
Yes.
that's where I was missing.
Now, there would be some limitations there because of the dollar amount that we have as far as the NA&T course. So it's not going to cover a lot of the costs associated with that. That is a pretty expensive course, but again, that's something that they could do.
Okay.
The next, course is one that we actually have back online now that we were not able to complete it last fiscal year because we went through almost a year of negotiations with McNeil and Company on the curriculum that was used in the EVOC course. The EVOC course we had a lot of success with, but McNeil came back and they wanted to basically step in and, do the training themselves and have the grant funding go to them. The problem with that is that all three of the instructors that teach that course had been through McNeil's program, and they were not doing any hands-on training. So everything was a, basically in class time experience with almost no hands-on training, which for our EMS folks, and especially for that type of training, just was not hitting the mark. So we went through negotiating with them and finally got to a point where they agreed, we are still paying them an amount of money per student for using their curriculum. So we felt like it was important to go through that process. They've now signed off on that and are allowing us to go ahead forward with that class with us doing the training, which incorporates almost a full day of hands-on in the vehicle training. Now, it's not, of course, the old training that you remember from the training center where they had a skid pad and everything there. It's not high velocity, nothing like that, but it is home courses and actual hands-on. A lot of, if you talk to anyone with liability and talking to insurance providers, the majority of the problems come in with backing up, not using spotters. So it goes through a lot of that, things that we find more high incident of claims with than getting into some of those high-speed areas.
McNeil, is that a curriculum company?
McNeil is actually an insurance provider, but they have curriculum, they had curriculum originally developed for the paramedic and EVOC.
Okay, all right.
Claims, so they have an extensive background and database on accidents.
Yeah. So we're using a lot of their information on, again, how we tweak our curriculum to make sure we're hitting the points at that time that we need to. I know that, Chatham, is one that has actually used it a lot and has seen the significant cost savings in what they've done there. We had a lot of people that were wanting this training, so we're getting back online and have those scheduled, starting coming up now. And the EMS instructional preparedness course, this is the initial credentialing for instructors. We work with the state office on this quite a bit. Daniel has worked with Richard and looking at the lesson plan. We actually have another instructor who is a college professor that's actually working with us on this some now, and how we refine that curriculum and develop that lesson plan, again, in coordination with the state office and the areas that they want us to cover. We're doing a lot of it in as much as we can online prior to the in-class room time. We're trying to make sure that our lesson plan is consistent and that we're covering as much as that as we can before they are actually in the in-person component. So that is, we have, I believe, 4 of those courses scheduled over this next fiscal year.
Which line item is that? Is that the bottom? Which?
You got instructor technician at the top.
Yes.
The program. And
It's
there's-
Yes,
consortium
the
up top.
Right, the EMS instructor tech is the
2 under that.
course.
Third one down.
Yeah.
EMS instructor.
The other category is, again, we already talked a little bit about the EMR courses, also, which is consolidated with the EMT programs. And I think, Crystal talked a little bit about what we're doing with MedEd Prep and our preparations on that. That is it's difficult to manage sometimes because we do have a lot of services that for whatever reason, they weren't able to start a course on this specific date, so it gets pushed out. So we're wanting to make sure that we cover everything and give them a good orientation going into this grant. We do have a process where they, of course, have to get course approval. But we want to make sure that they know all of the information and the use of med ed prep from the very beginning to hopefully make that a more successful program. The next category is patient handling and low angle rescue. And I think that all of you probably saw in the report that was submitted for this meeting. We actually had a report back from an incident that happened up at the gorge. That actually Carol Sparge, who was a reporter with one of the TV stations in Atlanta, was actually took a fall. And so this training specifically came into play with that rescue. That is another course that we obviously are very limited in where we can do that. Not everybody has a ropes rescue or has the need for that. So primarily those courses have taken place. I think we've done one in Harris County and the other has been up in Habersham County. So we're looking for areas that we can provide that class, or, you know, where it's needed, but that has been something that we've gotten a good bit of feedback on. The one-day consortium is the other one that you referred to, and that's another class that, again, that we try to make sure that we cover as much information up front in some of these courses and an ongoing training of what the state office needs us to, information that we need to get out to our instructors. So that's the training there. Mental health first aid, that is the class that we talked about a little bit about. That is, again, new. It's something that we have been getting a lot of feedback on as far as needing more mental health resources. We're also working on another mental health full day training that'll take place probably during the summer that's outside of this. But that is something that we're constantly getting calls about, and we're accommodating that and filling those gaps where we can. And Mr. Chairman, that covers most everything that's in the scope of work. A little bit about what we do. As you know, we have, my staff is myself, Kathy, Travis, and then Tracy handles the accounting part of it. Travis is lead on the NAMT courses and making the connection with the EMR, EMT courses. And then Kathy handles a lot of the coordination on everything else. So a lot of work, but we're continuing to push forward in our scheduling for this year's courses to go through, I believe, October, that we'll be conducting these courses for 2025.
What I'm gonna do right now, if you got some questions, I asked you to write them down, we'll come back to it. Because we got some folks online that have some under new business that we won't get presentations done. And then we can take that up and then we can come back and get any questions or anything there. And then we'll do the whole business. Is that reasonable? Is Nick and Dr. Bulger, are they available?
Yep, Nick and Dr. Bulger, can you guys unmute your?
Yep. Here.
Yes. Okay, great. Just as a lead into this, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. It seems like we've been working on this forever because it took a while to get good data on 911 ambulance locations. But this is our accessibility project. This is actually a replication, and Dr. Bulger, you're the expert. You and Nick are experts on this. So if you guys want to give sort of just a little high level overview on this before you guys dive into the data, that would probably be helpful. And then you can share your slides. I know Nick put together some great slides with some good data. So I will turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, great. I'm happy to just say a few words and then let Nick run this because he did all the work as usual. So, you know, the concept is if you can really get granular enough data, you can do some geospatial mapping to really understand what the access is to resources. And you can do that for EMS. You can also do that for trauma centers at different levels. And once you have that sort of built out for a state or a region, you can then use that to say, well, what if I change this parameter, put this helicopter base here versus here, or I put a new trauma center here, how would that change the access? And so what Nick has done is really spend a lot of time sort of working through the data for Georgia and then coming up with a model that he wants to sort of share that results with you. So I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thanks, Dr. Bulger. A quick introduction. My name is Nick Medrano. I am a research analyst for the Coalition of National Trauma Research. We are a nonprofit 501c3, mainly focusing on coordinating research efforts across professional organizations that span the continuum of injury care. What we mainly focus on primarily is strengthening infrastructure for multi-center investigations or multi-state investigations. My role at the organization, among other things, is, as Dr. Bolger said, geographic analysis. I have a background in GIS, Geographic Information Systems, which I'm sure you all being in the EMS community are extremely familiar with. And Dr. Bolger shared the analysis, a brief overview of the analysis that we've completed. We've completed this style of analysis for approximately half a dozen states. So Georgia being kind of the most recent. So yeah, I'll be sharing the kind of results of what we've been working on over approximately the past year. I'll go through kind of the major milestones, results, and then if you all have questions, please feel free to jump in or raise your hand if you're on the Zoom. So first of all, four major kind of milestones to this project. First, most important kind of milestone was just building out the infrastructure to get an understanding of where are all of the trauma system resources, whether that's ground EMS, air EMS, or trauma centers themselves. So that, as you all can imagine, very complex, always changing. So it took a while to collect all of that data into one system. Once we are able to collect that data, then we're able to analyze the overall access for the state using all of those resources. So that was milestone 2. Milestone 2 was determining your overall state's population access. The population data was obtained from the U.S. Census Bureau. We specifically looked at population for block groups. So the analysis looked at the entire pre-hospital time, which we define as activation, response, on-scene, and transport. So if you're interested, I can send you other publications that we have where we've built out this model. We've used national EMS NEMSIS data to come up with mean on-scene times as well as activation times. But then when it comes to calculating response and transport times, we used the infrastructure that we collected in milestone 1. Using ArcGIS, we were able to then complete a closest facility analysis to determine for each one of those block groups where was first the closest EMS facility that would respond to that population, and then from there where would be the closest trauma center, and then we did break that down by the trauma center levels 1 through 4. Milestone 3 was then mapping those results so we can get an idea of where kind of our gaps are geographically within the state. And then milestone 4, as Dr. Bolger mentioned, once we have an idea of where the existing infrastructure is, we can get an idea of if we change things in certain locations, how would that have an impact on the population's access? So for this overall analysis, we were looking at 60-minute service areas, so that kind of golden hour standard. By all means, this analysis could be completed looking at any type of time frame. And then when it came to identifying optimal trauma center upgrades, we looked at if it's let's say an existing level 3, if we converted it to a level 2, how would that change the population access? Or if it was a level 4 and we converted it to a level 3, what impact would that have? So that's the overall kind of overview of the project. And I'll kind of go through each one of these milestones and share a lot of maps with you all. Milestone 1 being, creating the system itself. I may need to zoom out a bit here. I believe this document did get sent out to the group, so if you do want to follow along and take a closer look at these maps, feel free to. The first one that we kind of just wanted to start with was getting an idea of where all of the ground EMS locations are within the state. We did want to look at specifically system status management counties as well, where EMS isn't necessarily going to be starting at a depot. But even collecting data like this, took a lot of time and effort from Courtney and the rest of the Georgia Trauma Commission team to ensure that we, as best as we could, collected every single location known within the state, so that way we could get a accurate representation of where access is available. So that was kind of the first step, and then it was, of course, building out the rest of the system. So that includes trauma center levels 1 through 4, pediatric centers, burn centers, air EMS as well. So as you can imagine, quite a bit of data to pull together. But the idea is that once we have all of this data collected into one location, we can then start analyzing overall access for patients to trauma care. Milestone 2 was then using that map that I just showed in order to get an understanding, an idea of access for ground transports. Traffic data was used, right, in order to, similar to how you would pull data from Google Maps in order to get an estimate of how long it would take to get somewhere. So once again, from the nearest EMS depot to the population centroid of a block group, and then from the centroid of that block group to the nearest trauma center. And then we also included that so that was for ground, and then we also included air EMS as well. This top table specifically looked at breaking down ground and air EMS based off of virality, so median response times to scenes. This be the sum of the activation time as well as the response time. So once again, for activation time, we used means that have been calculated using the NEMSIS data set. So we did a meta-analysis of that data set. This isn't specific to Georgia activation times. This is nationwide based times, but nationwide times based off of virality. And then we use those response times using ground networks. And then table 2 shows the overall access to population, population accessibility. The left-hand column looking at just utilizing ground EMS, and then the right-hand column if we add in air EMS resources as well. And then we have it broken down by level. If we just want to look at level 1 access using just ground, we can see it's about 46% of the population, and so on. We see that percentage go up, of course, as we add more trauma centers to the system, looking at all the way through levels 1 through 4. And then we see our levels go up as well when we include air EMS. So these are kind of our baseline data points. I'll be sharing a map that goes over pretty much each one of these scenarios. So we have a map for this scenario for level 1, a map for level 1s and 2s, and so on. And that gives us an idea of kind of where our gaps are. And then based off of that, then we can, see if we change things in the system, how that impacts these numbers. So accessibility, just looking at level 1s, I do want to say that when it comes to what data was included in the analysis, we used all of those ground EMS infrastructure. We also used air EMS within the state, as well as those that were out of the state but have the ability to cross state lines. And then we did also include those designated level trauma centers that are actually outside of the state as well. I've spoken with Courtney about, the complexities in Georgia, with different counties having certain, regulations around what they will and won't do. So we understand that this is a simplified version of, where a patient could potentially get taken, but we wanted to include these trauma centers, especially those that are extremely close to the border in neighboring states. So in this case, we have just level 1s, the dark gray area representing accessibility within 1 hour using just ground EMS, and then the lighter areas using ground and air added. Recompleted the analysis, now looking at level 1s and 2s. So again, and now adding in 3s, and we can see our increase in coverage. And then finally looking at level 1 through 4s. So then once we get to level 1 through 4s, then we can, see that we still have, just a few geographic areas that don't, according to this model, do not have access within that standard golden hour 60-minute service area using the existing infrastructure. So using that existing infrastructure, milestone 4 was looking at if we were going to make changes to the trauma centers themselves, where would it make the most sense to make changes when it comes to upgrading a trauma center? We understand that this doesn't have needs-based as like the NBATS tool, which is needs-based. Is there the need? Is there enough patients in that area in order to make upgrading a trauma center make sense? That does not include that in this analysis. This is strictly a geographic understanding of if we wanted to maximize population access, where would it make sense to at least start looking at whether it would be beneficial to make upgrades. Let me zoom in on this table, and then I'll have a few more maps to share. So going through this table, we first looked at level 1s and 2s. This is the existing 1s and 2 percentages and population access. And then we were able to identify which existing trauma center that's not a level 1 or 2 would it make sense to upgrade to a 1 or 2 in order to maximize accessibility. So that was identified as South Georgia Medical Center in Valdosta. And then we can see that kind of delta, that change in accessibility. So if we included air EMS, we're looking at an extra 270,000 Georgians who will now have access within that 1 hour time frame. This analysis was completed similarly. Level 1 through 3s will have then the existing data. And then if we were going to pick the optimized location for an upgrade, that would be Meadows Regional Medical Center in Vidalia. We can see those impacts, and then replicated one more time for level 1 through 4, where then we looked at non-designated trauma centers, and is there one that could be upgraded to a level 4, and the impacts that would have. And then finally that we mapped out that data. So here's kind of scenario 1. The gray being the same data from 1s and 2s. So the same map from above, but now we've identified that this would be the ideal location for increasing population access. Likewise, for levels 1 through 3, we can see that this particular hospital actually already exists within that golden hour, but if it was upgraded, it would increase accessibility in these regions in the red. And then finally, if we were going to add a trauma center to a level 4 tier, where would that kind of make sense down here in the southeast area of the state? So this is the work that we've been completing over the past about year or so. We plan on, or are currently putting together an abstract to present at the American Association for the Surgery of Trauma this year over these results. I'd be happy to take any questions, or Dr. Bolger or Liz, if you have anything else that you'd like to add about this work, please feel free to jump in.
I want to thank Kelly for all her work in getting all the locations nailed down. I know that was quite a heavy lift and we put in lots of back and forth. So thanks, Nick. I'll just let anybody, that's a lot of data, so.
You had a question?
Yeah, it's great information. Thank you very much. What is an ambulance depot? Is that the,
EMS station.
so what does that mean
Something you
actually?
don't have.
So what is 545 ambulance depots? What does that mean?
That's 545 stations. And that became a huge problem because when we first looked at it, we had counties that had more EMS stations than they had licensed ambulances. So we had to go back and look at some definitions because that county was considering their rural fire department with first responders as an ambulance station. So we went back and looked, and if you got a fixed location that you keep your trucks at, like Emmanuel County's got two, one in Swainsboro, one in Twin City. That's what we ended up doing.
So yes, it's a brick and mortar building
Yeah,
that a ground ambulance is stationed at.
does that answer it, Lee, or is that confusing more?
Does Emmanuel have 2 dots on there?
Yeah,
Orange has 3, and I know we do have 3 stations.
Emmanuel's got, it depends on which map you're looking at, sometimes it's hidden by the hospital.
Down there, it's just got EMS stations on.
So, but what we looked at is where brick and mortar, where an ambulance is stationed. So we did have it vexed us a little bit with the system status management counties. So we generally put the dot where your office was and then put the pink around it for us to know that that's a system status management county.
There's no way to identify posting.
Yes,
No.
yes. And
Because
that-
Lee, like, look at Bartow County on that map, it shows, if I'm looking at it right. There's one.
Okay, so the pink is the system status man.
Yeah, that's how that's delineated.
Okay, fine. So it's good information.
It really, some things that you think are simple. What's an ambulance station? It became difficult. And we worked through it.
Do we have
And that
29
was the
helicopters?
original
Jordan?
I think so.
We have a lot more help. When we did the ACS system console in 2023, we had to produce that map. I was really shocked by the coverage we
So
did.
you got that map on there too?
Yeah.
How many are out? I guess how,
Nick, can you go to the map that shows the helicopter
I guess 4 or
location?
5 of those are out of state, like Chattanooga.
I can. I have an updated version where they're a little clearer. In this report, they're just these kind of gray dots. As you can imagine, we're throwing a lot of data on here. I can definitely add or change the symbology for them if you'd like them to, be more distinct on here. But it's hard to make things big because then you just start covering everything else up.
But y'all got this data on the send out.
Send out.
So please, go back and take it and pour over it. That's some good, really good information.
And you guys are like the first committee to see it. This afternoon, the System Performance Committee will see it, and Dr. Bolger and Nick will present it to the commission. And I think, we have a lot of data sets going on right now. We really just need to sit back and sort of figure out kind of what this means and what next steps might be. Nick, did you also have something about where there were gaps in 911 ambulance coverage or something, where we looked at where those gaps could be, or were we just kind of taking that off of the map?
We didn't specifically get down to that. That was something that I was interested in, potentially in future work of identifying where we have long response times. Because ideally that can tell us where we have, of course, then, EMS is lacking if we're seeing long response times in specific zones. So that's not something, no, that we looked at specifically for this analysis, but yeah, it's definitely when it comes to optimizing the system, would be good to know where that's the case.
I think the power of this data is once you have it built out and you're comfortable that, we've captured it accurately as possible, then you can say, you can ask questions like, okay, what if we added a EMS agency in this location? What would it do? Or what if we moved a helicopter base or, changed as Nick modeled, changing a hospital level? There's lots of questions you can ask to this data set that we can then look at.
And Nick kind of brushed on a concept that we have, or a concern that we have, because this is based on fairly standard data. But, and some of us have been talking today about an issue in a particular county where they're having a meltdown, I guess is the nicest way to say it, but the county ambulance service doesn't do inter-hospital transports. Or did not, and now they are, and now the people who weren't mad are mad, and the people who were mad aren't mad. I guess I said that right. Just a lot of mad people in that county. But that's a kind of an outlier. Because obviously, if you can't get an ambulance quickly to make that transport to a level 1 center, then the hour goes away. It takes you 5 hours to find an ambulance, and obviously you're not gonna make it to a level 1 in an hour. So those are kind of outliers that we'll have to tickle a little bit to try to understand.
Yeah, and that's something that we've seen kind of across as we have done this in different states, is every state's situation is completely unique in how they manage their EMS systems. Absolutely, if we had, a comprehensive list of what are the protocols in which of these counties, we can implement that into the model to get a better understanding. As you said, it may look like there's an hour, but there's actually not, because this is the county's protocol. But there's so much nuance to the system. It's just a matter of what do we have information on, and the more information we have, the more we can add into the model.
Any other questions? So Dr. Bulger, Nick, thank y'all so much. It's been enjoyable to work with you, and we hope to keep this going. Kelly's smiling, so that's a good thing. Kelly had a lot of work to do, so. All right.
Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is Usman on?
Yeah.
All right, we got another presentation I want to do on the blood delivery project. Usman has been with us once before, and he's got a little bit more information. So we've asked him to come back and present what he's got and some of his thoughts. How are you, sir?
Hey there, good morning, everyone. Courtney, thank you for having me back. My name is Usman Jamal. I'm the founder of Reflex. We're a drone solutions company specializing in emergency response and public safety. And like Courtney mentioned, I gave a presentation last year discussing how drones can serve as first responders and deliver life-saving medical equipment such as AEDs. Today, I'm excited to build on that conversation by presenting another use case, that being blood delivery. So by leveraging the same principles of speed, precision, and reliability, drone-based blood delivery can bridge critical gaps in emergency hospital logistics, ensuring that blood is always within reach. I'd be interested to see some of that modeling with some of the work that Nick just presented. But as we know, traditional transportation methods are often hindered by traffic, distance, and logistical delays. So our goal is to address those challenges and delays by leveraging drone technology. So I've been discussing 2 use cases with Courtney over the last several weeks. The first one being pre-hospital blood delivery, and then the second being hospital to hospital delivery. For the pre-hospital blood delivery, for our purposes, that includes scenarios like trauma incidents or transporting patients where EMTs need blood at the scene, pretty quickly. So I've got a map there of a drone station theoretically being placed at Augusta Medical Center, and the service area we could provide with the drone station there. The distance from Augusta Medical Center there at the center to the red ring is about 18 miles. And so yeah, that's what a zone-based coverage model would look like, that we would go with for the pre-hospital blood delivery model. For the second use case, the hospital to hospital use case, obviously that focus emergencies, whatever it may be, maybe disaster relief, and we need to get blood out to different communities. But this model, you're flying, point to point, and that's where what it's limited to. So both use cases are important and solve different problems. But I have some details on both the models so we can understand the nuances of each model, and hopefully make some determinations on which use cases might be most beneficial to implement here in Georgia. So for the pre-hospital blood delivery model, the typical workflow would look something like this. You have a 911 call come in, EMTs are dispatched and arrive on scene, and somewhere within that time frame, the need for blood is identified. At that point, a request can be put in by the dispatcher, and that gets sent to the blood bank. An employee of the blood bank can package that blood up and get that loaded onto the drone. And then that's where Reflex takes over, and we can navigate the drone to whatever designated location that may be. So that could be the scene of the emergency, that could be a rally point, that we hand off the blood to the EMTs on the ambulance, whatever it may be. That's what that would look like. The important thing to point out here is that for this model, you need one drone and one docking station to get started. So thinking back to that zone-based with that circle, we just need that one drone and one docking station there. And then with the drone that I'm currently looking into for this use case, we would have a service area of 1,018 miles. So pretty decent coverage. And traveling at 50 to 60 miles per hour, you'd be getting to the outer ring within 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your weather conditions. The biggest thing, or the biggest assumption to make, or the biggest two assumptions, would be that the medics are trained to handle and administer blood, and then because we don't have designated landing zones, putting together a protocol for what that looks like in that region. So if we're sending a drone out there, and we've set a rally point at some, parking lot or whatever it may be, you're landing a drone that is, 6 to 7 feet wide in, wingspan. We've got to mitigate any dangers that poses to, the general population, and be able to handle that pretty safely. So that's just something to consider with this model. The next use case, the workflow looks pretty similar, where you've got the need for blood identified at the hospital. You put in that order, we get the coordinates of the location and whatnot, gets loaded onto the drone, and we take over from there. The important thing in this model is that we must have a docking station at each delivery location, because we are kind of maximizing the range and capacity of the drone. So in this case, that looks like about 38 miles. Of course, that depends again on weather conditions and how heavy we're loading the drone. But if you're flying out, and I'll go back to the map here. So this is the level 1 trauma center in Savannah. I think that's Memorial Hospital. And then the two closest level 4 trauma centers. I think it's Wynn County down here in Fort Stewart, and then Effingham County Hospital in Springfield. I think both of those definitely fall in within the 38-mile range. But once you fly out of Savannah to one of those hospitals, you're gonna have to land the drone, swap the batteries, and then get going. So that's just something to consider for the hospital to hospital model. I've got a picture here of the drone, or what the drones in this class look like for these use cases. So from edge to edge, you've got about 6 to 7 feet of wingspan, and that's just something you've got to consider. This is a docking station that, you need power and Ethernet too, so that, we can run these drones autonomously from our command center. But in terms of next steps and kind of where we want to go with this, I think it's important to leverage your expertise. I think some of the data, Nick, that you presented would be really beneficial to understanding what regions and what hospitals, would benefit from a drone system like this. I think if we had an understanding of the demand for blood across the different regions, that would also be really important into narrowing down, what operation or what our operation looks like, what model we use, and all of that I need to take to put together an operational plan and submit that to the FAA to get, all those regulatory approvals. I know we're pretty close on time, but I'd like to open up the floor to any questions or any feedback that you all might have for me.
Question?
Interesting concept.
Yeah, the foundation is actually, this is one of the three things that they are considering for trying to raise money to do. And I think the biggest problem right at the moment is there's a lot of questions about how it can be done and how we study it to make it work, maximize it. From my perspective, I don't know that the smaller rural ambulance services will ever get to. It would be logistically very difficult for each one of them to try to do a blood program like Grady has done, or like Northeast Georgia has done. So simply because of the low volume and the short lifespan of the blood products. So the thought is that if we have key hospitals in Georgia who are willing to participate, then they would have a drone at their hospitals. The EMS could ask for, another hospital could ask for the blood, or EMS could ask for the blood, and the EMS would have to give them a GPS point to deliver it to, or have preset places that take a manual county. If we are en route to the trauma center in Augusta, we knew we needed blood, then we could have them drop off the blood at a specific area en route, and just meet it there, get the blood, start the blood, and go on.
What?
Yeah.
What's the max range of the drone in the EMS setting without having to have a docking station at the other end?
Yeah, I think that helps the thing. I don't know.
38 miles.
38 miles. Well, 38 miles is you got a docking station.
Yeah.
So with the EMS, the concept with the EMS is that if you can get 38 miles, but once you get 38 miles, you've got to charge that bad boy or not get it back home. So I would assume about half that, Kelly, because it's got to get there and back. Probably a little bit less than half that, because you have some downtime and burning it as it lands and takes back off. If you worked it and you've got it very well organized, and you could go to 38 miles without, make sure you got law enforcement or something that'll stay at the docking station and charge the batteries. But that's several years down the road to get that kind of thing. I think where we're at now is trying to figure out, and I think, and please correct me if I say something wrong, but I think the idea now is to find some place we can pilot this and give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the best next steps to go for this.
Who flies it?
So that'd be my team. These drones are autonomous, so they fly themselves, but we have a human in the loop to monitor the operations and follow it real time to make any changes to the flight plan.
What's the readiness cost?
I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns right now. Yeah, I think probably you could do a lot of recruiting in Ukraine. They've got some experts with drones over there, I tell you, but they don't get theirs back. So I guess that would be well. But I do know what little bit I know about them is that you have to have an FCC, FAA license to fly this style drone. The other interesting thing, I was in a thing the other day about them, some of these drones have to have special permission. If you go have a docking station at an airport, then it'll have to be programmed to allow it to fly in an airport space. So
Right.
there are some restrictions on these things.
Yeah, and I've got you know, some contacts at the FAA that I've been engaging with them, you know, and having discussions on how we'd go about these regulatory approvals. And there's two main pathways we could take. But yeah, there's, you know, definitely a subset of rules that we have to follow, you know, operating drones in the national airspace.
So any other questions? Thank you very much, sir, and we'll be talking some more.
Thank you, Courtney.
So what I want to do is go back and give y'all any opportunity to ask Kim questions. If you have questions about the different classes that are provided through the GAMS contract. Hearing none, then I'm gonna go into old business. And we'll start with the equipment grant request. We have those, yeah. So I think you were given this information. I hope you read over it. Bear County.
Can I ask a question real quick? Cause there's some of this stuff I felt like we plowed through. Didn't we do ballistic vests one time before?
We've been there.
But it was an individual place that requested it, and I think even with that one, there was some questions about what they had versus didn't have. And
There's at least two of these that I know we have been down that road before, but we still got the request. So.
No, I'm not disagreeing with it. I just, for those that are new, I thought we would at least say, hey, in the past, we said yes or no.
Yeah.
Cause
well,
going forward, we're not gonna keep it on the list forever. Isn't that what we said?
well, I know that
Refresh my memory.
just like the
Washing machine.
the washing machine we took off, there's somebody that has requested an ATV.
Right,
And
right. A Blake mobile, yeah.
in the past, last meeting, I think we took that off.
So is once we approve it, does it stay or does it stay
It's
forever or just this rotation?
Yeah, once we approve it, it stays unless we take it off.
Okay,
And.
that's the reason I was asking.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
But even like the UTV, didn't we decide the last meeting that would be a case by case, even though we were taking it off
Yeah,
the list?
everything's, in all honesty, it's always a case by case basis, okay?
Okay.
But having said that, if we make a case to give one to one guy, it becomes difficult to tell the next guy no.
I mean, essentially, once you approve it, you open it up for that whole cycle,
Yeah,
unless we take it off again, right?
I agree with that.
I mean, I'm asking, I'm not saying, I'm asking.
I agree with that.
That's what happens, I mean, it's like what you said, once you give it to somebody,
Right.
you not give it to somebody else.
Right. Because once we say yes to anything that's on this list, they become part of the record. The deadline's not till the end of the month, so.
And I'm hoping.
Marrow County gets this approved, then any other county could ask for it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So, but the other thing I want everybody to remember, the goal of this committee and the whole trauma commission is that we improve survivability of trauma, from trauma. And so if they're asking for something that's just out of line, then we should disapprove it. But having said that, I've looked at all of these and I don't have any real heartburn with any of them, but, and sometimes it depends on, and we may look at this a little bit different. Somebody's asking for a whiz bang thing, but they don't have some standard equipment. You ask, has this guy got a fluid one? They want to spend money for this, but they don't have a fluid one. So they got trauma patients in the back of their ambulance they're giving cold fluids to. So would that be an appropriate thing to do? And I'm not fixing to get into that today because we don't have the time to worry with that. Don't have time to determine that today. But we batted around in the past about we have certain equipment that if you don't have this equipment, then don't ask for anything else. So I think we might want to revisit that because I am big on fluid warmers and I recognize that some aren't, but anyway.
That was part of the application question this year.
It was?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here we are with Barrow County EMS. And they're looking to buy ballistic vests, and I can kind of understand why that would be kind of high on their protocol. For those who might not put the two together, the Appalachia school shooting was in Barrow County. So I know that's probably near and dear to their thoughts right at the moment. So you've got the request, entertaining the motion or not?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve in a second. Discussion.
So we did discuss this a few years back.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we personally, we looked at these several years ago. The problem is a ballistic vest doesn't do anybody any good in a compartment,
And what?
in a compartment. And so unless you're willing to wear it the whole time you're on duty on every call, it's not like somebody can shoot at you and then you go decide to put it on. And that always comes down to people are not willing to wear them 24/7 on the call, or, you know, they want to pick and choose when they put it on, and usually it's too late to make that decision. If you find yourself in that
Responded to a school shooting, you render aid.
you respond to anything and you can shot. I mean,
Yeah, I think people that are using even EMS right now are using them for these type of calls.
Yeah.
For going in and put themselves and it's more risk than normal type calls, but you're right, it could happen on any call. But
So I don't know what these things cost. I don't have a clue. And it may be within here about how many they would buy with this. But I do understand the concept that they would have them available so that if they go to an active shooting situation, they would put them on.
Courtney, one of the things about this, but I think a lot of them are doing it, the top one concepts out of the tactical training is the establishment of a rescue task force. So the majority of these people that are actually going to be equipped this way are the ones that have been trained on that rescue task force that make it.
Any other discussions, questions, comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye. Any opposition, same sign. All right, it passes. Can we go down to the next one? Liz, were you running this or is Gabby? Oh, good. Okay, good.
Gabby is.
So if I can read this as Franklin County. They're looking for probe thermometers for hypothermia patients.
I make motion.
To approve? Okay, motion to approve.
I'll second.
Got a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Any opposition, same sign. That one passes. So we go down.
I mean, we got.
Like four. Not big more. Monroe County, full body harness. And I'll be honest with you, I'm familiar with body harnesses. But this one they're looking for swift water rescue team being established.
I move for approval.
I gotta move for approval. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second.
Okay, can we have a brief discussion on this one?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll look this one up. Monroe County does a great job. Y'all remember years ago, they did a long line rescue up there off High Falls, so I commend them. I just don't know where this stops. With this is you probably know better than I do. It's a fancy harness that's used in fancy $400 harness. If you've got the team, I just don't understand why this is even an ask. So I just don't know where it stops. So is it oars for the inflatable rescue boat next, and I'm not trying to belittle their request at all. I commend them for it. To me,
You're just questioning whether this money should be spent for that.
yeah,
I think there's other things that are probably there.
yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor be aye. All opposed, same sign. All right,
We
gang.
gotta,
We're gonna have to work on this a little bit.
You didn't abstain yet, so
Huh?
you didn't say abstain yet, so.
Well. Unless you can give me a good reason, you're not gonna abstain on this. All in favor will be aye.
Aye.
Okay, I got two. All opposed?
No,
One, two. Three. Okay.
Four.
What was that one?
Four.
Four, okay. So we got, best I can tell, gang, I got 4 against and 2 in favor. Anybody question my counting skills?
Well, that's another.
Okay,
that doesn't equal everybody, it doesn't.
yeah, that doesn't equal everybody.
I know. I.
So you didn't solve anything. You mean to open those Snickers bars for you now? I said no.
Okay, so I'm seeing it that one was not approved. And we go to number 4.
I think that's the ATV.
And this is Toombs County. And I think they gave a whole bunch more information in the supporting document that you received. This is an ATV and, I call it ATV, y'all, from John Deere Gator as least, so as a Blake mobile.
That's done with respect.
Yeah, it was, and Blake is a great guy.
What are they getting from Salmon Commission money? They probably have 2 ambulances.
Do what now?
How many ambulances do they have?
They got like 5 ambulances, I think,
But that are,
5 or 6.
that were based on their grant. 2, but they staff full time?
No, they're staff.
Yeah, I think they staff at least 3.
They're close to me.
I think we got 2 in Vidalia, 1 at Cedar Crossing, I think, something like that. Every community's got a Cedar Crossing. So,
All we're really gonna give them is whatever their trauma commission.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
they're just getting that money, and it's not, they're not getting the $20,000. They're getting
I just wonder how much
whatever
that
they're
equipment getting used
Compared to a food.
compared to whatever else the money goes towards, it's, you know.
Well, we have an ATV or UTV animal, so we use it all the time.
They,
Because we have a lot of outdoor events and we have a lot of concerts where, we just can't hardly even walk in there, but we make alleyways through the concert venue.
well, I mean,
You
we,
drive the UTV and get.
we always did too for special events.
We use it a lot.
For 911 utilization.
We go after deer hunters and all that stuff too, but it sounds like they did the same thing, so.
So he actually called me, before we went through the list the last time and was talking about it some, so they do have. Some, like a Union Festival and some other events and stuff, so that. Well, as he was talking about it, and it's been months ago that I talked to him, it to me sounded like a reasonable request that fits into. Your description there of what they were wanting to be used, and that kind of, that was the function that he was describing.
Any other comments? Entertain a motion. Or not?
Motion approved.
Have a motion to approve. Got a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposition, same sign. I will say that one's approved. That was all of them, wasn't it, Gabby? Thank you so much.
The ones that you guys approved,
I'm sorry.
you want them on the list, or are they gonna be a case by case?
I think we put them back on the list. Well, hold on just a minute. We keep them on a list for step by step. In other words, if they want these things that we just voted on, they'll have to ask for them specifically.
Okay, so the ballistic approach and the ATV are just gonna be case by case.
Case by case.
So is it only approved for these people is what you're saying?
Yeah,
That's what we said the last meeting.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a case by case.
Well, there were some
go back and look at the list they sent out, email, it showed there were some people that requested items we'd already want to approve, so those are automatically approved.
Yeah.
For the ones that have to go on.
You guys, I think, made a specific motion for some items to add it to the approved list, not everything though,
So
so.
last time we took, in fact, is we took ATV all.
Yeah.
So
I had a call about one that did not meet the deadline for getting the request in. I believe it was December 20th that they had to put it in. So they were also wanting to know about approval for the listed best. So they didn't send me the request for it, but they.
So, yeah, if they didn't send in a request in a timely manner, then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to parse your words, I'm just trying to understand, because I'm more confused now. So this is a
How
one
did
time,
that affect on you?
I'm getting ready to eat half a Snickers bar, but,
Got two.
that's a big Snickers bar.
Sometimes there's a big.
So they're approved. Who's this? Toombs Montgomery's approved.
Yeah.
But if they want to buy one next year, they got to ask for it again?
Yep.
Okay, and nobody else can buy one this year because we're approved?
Yep.
Okay, makes perfectly good sense now.
They can't use the money for it.
Yeah, they can buy anything they want to, just not with our money.
Do you have that, who's driver? Okay. Do you have the list of the stuff that's already approved? Look that up there real quick. 'Cause we took off washing machine, ATV.
Thermonuclear war and all that stuff.
You can get you a Pete, he's approved.
While she's doing that, I'm gonna, because it's 23 after, March 12, I don't have anything of a big update for you on that. And I think that is all of our meeting agenda items.
We got the rescue litter on there. That was already approved.
That's not the same,
Yeah, that's a
that's
good.
two different things.
Okay, so will we ever approve anything? Like, I was just trying to. IV fluid systems, I guess somebody had to bring that first time, right?
Yeah.
So will
Not
anything,
been me, because I'm not.
okay, so will anything ever transition from the just you to this list? How does it make it from the just you to this list?
When somebody on this committee says, we want to make that, put it on
Okay.
that list.
Okay, fair enough. Because before, everything just went to the permanent list.
When we put it on, it went to the permanent. list,
Right.
That's right.
Right, so now we're saying individual agency.
Certain things like this, I think they need to make.
Okay, I'm just trying to get
make their
the
case.
clarity on it, because it used to go, once approved by us, it went to the permanent list.
Yeah.
It's bigger than I remember,
And
but
that
I'm
was-
glad you had it, so thank you.
But I think it's last meeting, y'all voted to take those things off.
100% agree, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But I just didn't know now when things were getting approved, whether they would go into the permanent list or the temporary list.
Okay.
So it's
Even this list and that, when I read, somebody brought it up, the rescue evacuation litter, that's,
that one.
that's broad.
It-
So
it
what
is.
we, I mean, so it,
But, okay, let's say it's broad. So the concept, at least in my mind, is if you're buying some type of carrying device that will help you handle trauma patients, then I'm okay.
Well, and it's not even we probably want to look at this list, not today, but like traction sleds, you gotta have that on the ambulance. So it's on the equipment list. I don't even know why it's on this list.
Well, at one time, we said
At one
anything
time
the
it had-
state required could
Yep.
not be on the list, because you had to have it anyway.
But then y'all,
Well, that's on the other
we
list.
changed that.
They
I
figured it
know,
out.
I know.
And I'm not so sure you didn't have to, you didn't
I
change
mean, it
it.
didn't make any sense to me.
Because the point
We already
was-
required to have it, why are we agreeing to?
So is the state equipment list included or not included in that? Now I'm doing.
It is included.
It is included and the national pediatric list is included.
Okay.
so good.
Clear as mud.
Okay. Anything else that needs to come in front of this committee? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn, so y'all can stay
Motion.
right here.
Second, third.
Thank y'all so much for coming. And remember in March, come bring a snack.